Thank you, Dr. Belgrej, and thank you, Dr. Olson, for the introduction. Dr. Olson happens to be a great mentor of mine and just recently published a book titled By Any Means Necessary. I picked it up and I actually had a personally autographed copy, and it was a great book for anyone who's looking to see the story of an entrepreneur who grew up in New York and within simple means, but made it to space. So I think it's a great, inspiring story for anyone. And like Dr. Olson said, it's not just an American story, it would be an international story as well. So thank you for inviting me to be here today. I have, by the way, a written speech. I never read a written speech, but I guess my staff, they don't trust me anymore, so I'm going to be reading to you. There's no doubt that we are on the cusp of a new era in energy today. For more than a century, economic growth in the developed world has been dependent on fossil fuels. For most of that time, very few gave much thought to the downsides of using fossil fuel. More recently, the enormous price we pay has become more and more apparent. The unprecedented environmental and economic disaster in the Gulf of Mexico highlights the need, indeed the imperative, to find safe, affordable, abundant, and reliable alternate sources of energy. I am with you today as a representative for renewable energy and an advocate for renewable energy. I firmly believe that the future of our planet and our ability to maintain and expand economic prosperity depend on our ability to harness renewable sources of energy. We simply cannot continue to rely on a finite source that does significant harm. This is a source that harms us when we use it. This is a source that also harms us when we extract it. It is my belief that we are in a fight for the future. It is a fight we cannot and must not lose. There will be no second chance to save the Earth from the damage we are doing every day. Several years ago, I attended a lecture at Harvard Business School given by renowned leadership expert John Carter. His, quote, 8 steps for leading change, unquote, have greatly influenced my own thinking in the renewable energy business. Over the past several years, I have often thought about the first of his 8 steps for leading change, for shaping the future. The first step is this: create a sense of urgency. Now, Carter does not suggest manufacturing a sense of urgency where there is none. Rather, he urges leaders to make people aware that a situation demanding change has become urgent. People need to understand that unless action is taken now, the consequences of inaction will be severe. Over the past 2 decades, the evidence has mounted about how our dependence on fossil fuels is degrading our environment. Who can any longer doubt that we face an urgent need to invest in the research and development of clean, reliable sources of renewable energy? Recently, the Pentagon, Lloyd's of London, and the US Department of Energy each issued reports predicting potentially crippling shortages of oil within the next few years. By the 2030s, one American analyst projects that, quote, the world would need to add roughly the equivalent of Saudi Arabia's current energy production every 7 years, unquote. Since that is unlikely to happen, these shortages would produce both economic and security disasters. Yet, as the world continues to struggle through a global recession, the year 2030 can seem very far away. Consequently, there are those who believe that this is the wrong time to invest in R&D in renewable energy. I believe such thinking is dangerously short-sighted. I am convinced that there has never been a more urgent time or a better time to invest heavily in renewable energy R&D. If we are to shape the future, we have to begin today. These investments will produce both short and long-term results. They will create jobs, both today and in the future. And they will get us that much closer to the time when the world economy will be powered by renewable energy. Last year, the United States government spent only about $5 billion on renewable energy R&D. That is nowhere near enough. $5 billion is less than 2% of all R&D spending in the United States, less than 2%. And it is just a small fraction of the country's gross domestic product. I remember a story from Greg always saying how in the 60s, with the NASA program, the percentage was
4.5.
4.5 of the national domestic product. So it's a much, much higher percentage. And I think we're still living off the benefits of that massive investment in R&D 40 or 50 years ago. Earlier this summer, a group of respected American business leaders, including Bill Gates of Microsoft and Jeff Immelt of GE, called on the U.S. government to more than triple its annual spending in energy research and development to $16 billion. From my vantage point, as an optimistic entrepreneur who has spared nothing in my life to help transform the way we produce and deliver solar power, that is a good start. But that's all it is. A down payment on what we must do to truly break the hold our addiction to fossil fuels has on our economy, our way of life, and our future. That is what led me 4 years ago to establish Petrosolar. Petrosolar has a new vision for solar energy. I would like to share with you what that vision is, what it means, and how we are implementing it. I believe our story illustrates the kind of thinking and progress that is taking place across the renewable energy sector. The kind of progress we need to see multiplied many times over. Petrosolar has developed and patented an entirely new approach to solar power generation. Its technology-based products are being leveraged right now to create innovative solar, smart grid, and grid reliability solutions. We call this our three-pronged approach, and it's unique in the solar industry. I believe, however, that it holds the promise of becoming common throughout the world. All of you are familiar with how solar power is generated. Quite simply, solar panels convert sunlight into electric power. For decades, the approach to harnessing the power of the sun has been to install large solar arrays either on a rooftop to provide power to a single building or in a large open field to generate power for the grid. The latter approach has many drawbacks, not the least of which is the need to acquire large open tracts of land on which to site the solar farm, and there are many difficulties associated with acquiring large tracts of land. Is siting, permitting, sometimes you have to move people, sometimes you have to extend the transmission line, really faces major problems. At Petrosolar, we're pioneering a deceptively simple but truly innovative approach. It is what we call our SunWave system, and it is designed to be installed right on existing utility poles and attached to existing lines. This eliminates the need to acquire vast acres of empty land. It also avoids the many other costs and difficulties of building a solar farm. Each SunWave panel provides grid-connected solar energy anywhere you find a utility pole. And the utility doesn't need to outsource the installation. It can use its existing crews to mount the panels to the poles. Each installation is very quick. We have a patent-pending mechanical mounting system, allows a lineman or a journeyman to put it up in less than 20 minutes. Very effective, very efficient. And there's no need here for investment in the infrastructure or to acquire new poles because the utilities own them already. Currently, we are deploying the largest solar electric project under construction in the United States. Our project is the single largest being constructed in the United States today. Our contract with Public Service Electric and Gas in New Jersey will result in the installation of 200,000 of our SunWave systems on utility poles across the state. When completed within the next 2 years, this 40-megawatt solar project will generate enough power to satisfy the needs of 6,500 average homes. These systems generate and provide power directly to the grid, but they do more than that. They also contain smart grid features that provide real-time information back to the utility. And they provide information about electric usage by customers. This unique information enables the utility to increase operational efficiency, resulting in significant cost reduction. Our patented system provides the utility real-time outage data to support smart grid outage management systems so that the utility knows that there's a problem before someone calls it in. We actually were told that one of the questions the utilities will ask you when there's an outage, did you hear a loud pop? Do you see smoke? So basically, transformers can blow up, can burn people, can burn cars. We know of actually a child that's been burnt by burning oil from a transformer. So by placing those panels on poles, these are smart elements. They talk, they communicate, they can really give, it's like having an EKG in a body. So having communications in place, having the sensors in place, having the solar energy in place, couples both smart grid and solar power.